Have you ever wondered what it felt like to wake up before alarm clocks existed, before the hum of electricity, before the glow of screens, before even the crow of roosters? What did morning smell like when the only smoke came from your own hearth fire? How did it feel to open your eyes knowing that if that fire died, everything could change? What sounds greeted the first stirring of consciousness when the world held fewer people than a modern city? Can you imagine the weight of responsibility on a mother's shoulders, knowing that her morning vigilance meant the difference between warmth and deadly cold for her children? The practiced movements of hands that had tended the same fire for years, decades even, never letting it fully die. What did it mean to gather food when there were no stores, no farms, no safety nets? When every seed collected, every root dug, every leaf identified correctly could mean the difference between health and sickness, life and death? Have you ever felt the texture of knowledge passed not through books, but through watching, doing, remembering? The way a grandmother's fingers could read the weather in the wind, predict the ripeness of fruit by the color of leaves, know which plants sing with nourishment and which whisper of poison. If journeys through the daily lives of our ancestors bring you the same wonder they bring me, if you find fascination in discovering how they lived, loved, and thrived in their ancient world, please consider liking and subscribing to follow along for more. And if someone you care about might appreciate exploring humanity's remarkable past, why not share this adventure with them? I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from today. Leave a comment below. Let me know what corner of our modern Earth you call home, and if there are other moments in the daily lives of our ancestors you'd like to explore together. Other routines from deep time you'd like me to share? Tell me in the comments. Your suggestions guide our future travels. But for now, let's step into the past. Are you ready for an incredible journey? Prepare to witness something extraordinary, a morning unlike any you've ever experienced. I am the Chrononaut, and I've traveled through the ages to bring you stories from deep time. Today, I invite you to join me on an adventure. Not forward, not back, but deeper. Into the memory of Earth itself. Get ready to experience what it was like when dawn was young, when every sunrise held both promise and peril, and when the simple act of waking up was a triumph of human ingenuity and courage. Come with me now. Let us leap across the centuries together. We arrive in darkness, not the artificial darkness of your modern night, diluted by distant streetlights and the glow of civilization, but the profound darkness that once blanketed the earth. The darkness our ancestors knew as intimately as their own heartbeats. It is 45,000 years before your time. We are in a river valley that will one day be called southern France, though no such names exist yet. The Ice Age grips the land, though we are in a pocket of relative warmth, where humans have learned to thrive. The stars above us shine with an intensity you have never seen. No light pollution dims their fire. The Milky Way arcs across the sky like a river of light, and its reflection shimmers in the water below. This is the same sky you know, yet utterly transformed by the absence of humanity's electric glow. Each star burns with prehistoric clarity. The Pleiades cluster that they call the Seed Sisters, marking planting time. The Great Hunter, whose belt points towards spring's return. The North Star, not quite where you know it, because even the heavens shift in deep time. The air carries scents that would seem alien to you. The musk of cave bear, though distant now. The green smell of the river, fish rich and cold. The faint smoke of other hearth fires from family groups scattered along the valley. There is the sharp tang of pine resin, the earthiness of decomposing leaves, the clean scent of coming frost. But strongest of all is the scent of home, the smoke from a fire that has not died in living memory, tended by generations of careful hands. Listen to the night sounds of this ancient world. The river speaks in tongues, the deep conversation of the main current, the giggling of water over stones, the whisper where it meets the reedy banks. An owl calls from the cliff face, not the hoot you might expect, but the eagle owl's deep, resonant boom that carries for miles. Small creatures rustle in the undergrowth, each sound a story of hunter and hunted. From somewhere in the darkness comes a sound that raises primitive fears, the coughing grunt of a cave lion, perhaps a mile distant but still too close for comfort. The sound cuts through the night, and then silence follows, as every small creature freezes, waiting for death to choose another path. We are about to witness something precious, the waking of a family on an autumn morning, when the world was young and humans were learning what it meant to be human. This is not a story of primitive people struggling to survive. This is the story of your ancestors at the height of their powers, masters of their world, beginning another day in the long chain of days that led to you. The rock shelter where they sleep has been home to humans for 1,000 years. The limestone cliff curves inward, creating a natural room 30 feet deep and 40 feet wide. The overhang protects them from rain and snow, while the southern exposure catches the warming sun. Generations have improved this space. A wall of stacked stones closes off the windward side, gaps chinked with mud and moss. The floor, once rough limestone, has been worn smooth by countless feet, swept clean daily, covered in places with woven grass mats. The first stirring comes not from human movement, but from awareness itself. In the rock shelter, where our family sleeps, consciousness returns slowly to Ashka, mother of 2, carrier of a 3rd. I remember her well, this woman whose name meant keeper of warmth in their tongue. At 28 years, she was in the prime of her life, her body marked by the passages of childbirth and seasons of plenty and want. Her internal clock, honed by years of responsibility, pulled her from dreams exactly when needed. She had been dreaming of her own mother, Kira, dead these 5 winters now, but still vivid in dream memory. In the vision, young Ashka crouched beside her mother at a similar dawn, learning the fire-tending ritual that would one day pass to her own children. She could smell the particular sweetness of her mother's milk scent, feel the gentle pressure of guiding hands on hers as tiny fingers learn to arrange tinder. Feel the ember's heat, Dream Kira instructed, not just with hands, with your heart. The fire will speak if you listen. It tells you whether it wants slow feeding or quick feeding, whether it needs air or shelter. She lies on a bed more complex than it first appears. The gathered grasses beneath her have been selected through generations of trial. Sweet meadow grass that repels insects, aromatic mint family plants that aid sleep, tough sedge grass that maintains structure. The whole mixture is replaced monthly, the old bedding composted into the family's waste pits, where it will enrich next year's wild plants. The bare fur covering her is from an animal killed by Drac 3 winters past. She softened the hide with months of patient scraping, worked in the bear's own fat to keep the leather supple, treated it with smoke to repel insects. The fur still carries faint traces of the aromatic woods used in that smoking. Cedar for protection against evil spirits, sage for purification, pine for strength. She does not open her eyes yet. First comes the listening that might mean life or death, To understand Ashka's morning ritual, you must first understand the layers of threat that shaped every dawn for your ancestors. Unlike the theoretical dangers that occupy modern minds, theirs were immediate, physical, and constant. Predators hunt most actively at dawn and dusk. The same semi-darkness that aids human fire building also conceals approaching bears, lions, or wolves. A cave bear might investigate the scent of stored food. A pack of wolves, driven by winter hunger, might probe the defenses of any human settlement. Even smaller predators like wolverines or lynx could kill a sleeping child before help arrived. Human threats are equally real. Raiding parties from distant clans sometimes strike at dawn, hoping to steal food, tools, or women, while defenders sleep. Lone human predators, men cast out from their own groups for crimes or madness, might stalk family groups, looking for opportunity to take what they cannot earn. So Ashka's morning consciousness unfolds in layers, each sense checking its assigned domain. First, smell. Her nose, trained to subtlety impossible in the modern deodorized world, reads the shelter's atmosphere like a detailed report. The fire, still alive but weak. She can tell from the smoke's density that the wood stack runs low, from its color that they're burning pine rather than the preferred oak. No scent of strangers, no blood smell that might indicate injury. No musk of large predators who might have investigated during the night. The familiar human sense of family mixed with smoke and worn leather, all as it should be. Next, sound. Her ears catalogue the familiar breathing patterns that mean her family lives and sleeps peacefully. Drax's breathing carries the slight whistle of his broken nose, gift of a long-ago fight with raiders from the northern valleys. The break never set quite right, but the sound now serves as audible confirmation of his presence. The rhythm tells her more. Deep and even means peaceful sleep. Shallow and irregular would signal illness or distress. Tam breathes with the quick rhythm of childhood, his growing body burning energy even at rest. Occasionally small sounds escape, half-formed words, the beginnings of laughter, the physical expression of dreams, where he runs and plays with the freedom only children know. Iska's breathing has changed over the past year, deepening as her child's chest expands toward womanhood. But tonight, she breathes with slight congestion, not illness, but the body's response to the increasingly cold nights. Ashka makes a mental note to prepare the warming teas that will ease her daughter's passages through the approaching winter. Uma's breathing carries more concerning information. The elderly woman's lungs hold fluid, creating the slight rattle that speaks of age's inexorable advance. But the rhythm remains steady, and the rattle no worse than yesterday. Uma will see another morning, another day to share her irreplaceable knowledge. All breathing accounted for, all sleeping sounds normal. She expands her listening to the shelter itself. Wind whispers through the entrance, bringing scents from the valley. The green smell of the river, the sharper tang of pine forest climbing the opposite slope. No scent of smoke from unexpected fires that might mean raiders. No smell of carrion that might indicate large predator activity nearby. Now she listens beyond the shelter to the valley's own breathing. The river's voice tells her much. Steady flow means the autumn rains have been adequate, though not abundant. Bird sounds begin with first light. Their absence of alarm calls reassuring her. Birds are vigilant creatures and would announce any disturbances with calls that carry for miles. Only now, after her senses have painted a detailed picture of the world's current state, does Ashka allow her eyes to open. To truly understand the weight of Ashka's morning responsibility, You must shed modern assumptions about fire. For you, fire is convenience. A switch flipped, a button pushed, heat and light on demand. For her, fire is life itself, the thing that elevates humans above the beasts and makes civilization possible. This fire she tends has ancestors, not just the physical flames passed from hearth to hearth across the valley, but a lineage of sacred flame stretching back to the first human, who learned to maintain, rather than simply use fire. The knowledge of its tending carries the weight of species survival. The fire is everything. Let me say that again, so you understand. The fire is everything. In your world, fire means ambience, camping trips, romantic evenings. Here, fire is the difference between human and animal, life and death, civilization and extinction. Ashka approaches it with the reverence a priest might show an altar. This particular fire has burned continuously for 4 years, since they last moved camps, but its lineage stretches back generations. A grandmother flame that has never fully died, passed from hearth to hearth, family to family, carrying the warmth of centuries in its glowing heart. The fire before her tells a complex story to eyes trained to read its language. The bed of ash glows with the faintest red, indicating live coals buried beneath yesterday's burned wood. The color of that glow, orange-red rather than white-red, tells her the fire's temperature, its hunger for fuel, its readiness to accept new wood without smoking excessively. The ash itself holds information. Its depth tells her how long the fire has burned since last cleaning. Not too deep, which would smother the coals, nor too shallow, which would provide insufficient insulation. She can even smell the fire's condition. Live coals produce a clean, almost sweet smoke when properly tended. Dead coals smell flat, acrid. From a container that never leaves the hearthside, she selects tinder with the care of a master craftsperson. The finest comes from the inner bark of birch trees, scraped into fibers so thin they catch fire from the merest spark. But for normal fire tending, she prefers the fungus that grows on dead trees, amadou, spongy and brown, that smoulders reliably and passes fire to larger materials. Fire is a living thing, her mother taught her. It breathes, it eats, it grows, it sleeps. Treat it like a beloved animal, with respect, consistency and understanding. It will serve you faithfully if you serve it well. She arranges the prepared tinder in a loose bird's nest shape, creating maximum surface area for oxygen contact while maintaining structural integrity. Now comes the critical moment. Using a fire-hardened stick, she gently stirs the ash bed, searching for the live coals that will restart her world. There, a cluster of coals glows brighter as air reaches them. They pulse like tiny hearts, orange-red cores surrounded by grey ash shells. Now she places her tinder nest directly adjacent to the coals, not touching but close enough that radiant heat begins to warm the finest materials. She positions her face to blow across the coals, sending the heated air into the tinder nest. Her breath must be controlled, steady, directed precisely where needed. Too strong and she'll scatter the coals or blow the tinder away. Too weak and insufficient oxygen reaches combustion. She's learned to read the feedback. The coals glow brightening in response to fresh air, the first wisps of smoke from the tinder. The moment when smoke changes from white to clear, that signals ignition approaches. The first flame is always a miracle, no matter how many times witnessed. A tiny orange tongue licks upward from the tinder nest, wavering at first, then stabilizing as it finds fuel. She feeds it immediately with slightly larger materials, grass stems, then twigs, each addition placed with precision. As the fire grows from spark to flame to reliable burn, Ashka's attention expands to encompass the full morning routine. But fire tending remains primary, the base rhythm around which all other activities organize. She adds wood in careful increments, building the fire's structure like constructing a small building. Wood selection matters more than modern minds might imagine. Pine and other resinous woods burn hot and fast, perfect for quick heating but wasteful of fuel. Hardwoods like oak burn more slowly and evenly, perfect for cooking or long-term heat, but requiring more care to ignite. The growing firelight reveals the shelter's full complexity. What appears to casual observation as a simple cave dwelling reveals itself as a sophisticated living space, designed and maintained through generations of accumulated wisdom. The walls are covered with artwork. Animals dominate the imagery. Horses gallop across the walls in red ochre, their forms so accurately rendered that individual muscle groups are visible. Bison graze in black manganese, their massive heads lowered to invisible grass. But the masterpiece dominates the back wall, a mammoth of extraordinary detail and power, filling nearly 10 feet of wall space, facing outward toward the shelter's entrance, as if protecting the human inhabitants. This is not artwork in the modern sense, but a spiritual presence. The mammoth watches over the family, embodies the strength and wisdom of the great beasts, connects the human inhabitants to the larger web of life that sustains them all. Tool storage reflects similar sophistication. Every implement has its designated place, positioned for easy access while protected from damage. Drak's hunting weapons occupy the place of honor nearest the entrance. His primary spear, made from a hazel sapling he guided for 3 years to grow straight, hangs at exactly the right height for quick grasping. The spear point, napped from obsidian traded from distant mountains, catches and reflects firelight like black water. Ashka's tools occupy their own section, equally important though different in purpose. Her gathering baskets represent some of the most sophisticated technology available to human hands. The finest basket, used for collecting seeds, is woven so tightly it holds water. Creating such a basket takes weeks of full-time work, and baskets like this one last for years when properly maintained. But perhaps most important are her medicine containers. These small baskets and leather pouches hold the community's pharmaceutical knowledge in physical form. Each container holds specific plant preparations, dried leaves, processed roots, powdered barks, concentrated extracts. The containers themselves are marked with symbols that serve as a primitive writing system, allowing the medicine keepers to remember which preparation serves which purpose. A circle with radiating lines represents sun plants, those that grow in full light and carry the sun's strength for healing fevers. Wavy lines indicate water plants, those that grow in moist places and cool the body, reduce swelling. A spiral represents moon plants, those gathered during specific lunar phases, used for women's mysteries, for sleep bringing, for visions. Ashka learned this knowledge from Uma, who learned from her own grandmother, in an unbroken chain stretching back to the first human, who discovered that certain plants eased pain or healed wounds. Some of the medicines in her collection would astonish modern doctors with their sophistication. Willow bark contains the compounds that became aspirin. Foxglove provides digitalis for heart conditions. Certain molds produce natural antibiotics. As the fire establishes itself and the shelter fills with growing light, the sleeping children begin their own return to consciousness. Tam wakes as children do everywhere, instantly, completely, ready for action, despite having been unconscious moments before. His eyes snap open and immediately seek his mother, the anchor point of safety in his small world. But he knows the morning routine and stays quiet, watching his mother's efficient movements while his body gathers energy for the day ahead. This is wisdom even at 6 winters. Understanding when to be still, when to move, when adult work requires child patience. Iska's waking is different, marking her transitional state between child and woman. At 11 winters, she no longer wakes with Tam's explosive energy, but hasn't yet developed adult discipline. She surfaces slowly from dreams, fighting the transition, clinging to the warm comfort of her sleeping furs, even as consciousness returns. Your children might wake to cartoons and sugared cereals. These children wake to responsibility and purpose. Tam knows that soon he'll help his father check trap lines before the main morning meal. Iska knows she'll join her mother for water gathering at the river, learning through repetition the paths and precautions that keep the family supplied with this most basic need. Drac stirs last of the adults, the deep sleep of a successful provider who knows his family is fed and safe. Yesterday's hunt brought down a young deer, not a mighty achievement by the standards of heroic tales, but solid, reliable provision that means protein for several days. He wakes fully alert, no grogginess or confusion. This is the gift of sleeping in rhythm with natural light cycles, of physical exhaustion that brings deep rest, of a mind unburdened by the 1,000 anxieties of modern life. His concerns are immediate and addressable. Is the family safe? Is there food? Are the tools in good repair? Each question has a clear answer, each problem a direct solution. Uma's waking is the careful process of age, each joint protesting the night stillness, each movement a negotiation with a body that has served long and hard. But her mind remains sharp, and her first waking thoughts turn to the teaching she must do today, showing Iska which roots to gather before the hard freezes lock them underground, explaining to Tam why certain stars mean certain weather patterns. The morning routine now unfolds with practiced efficiency. No one needs to be told their tasks. Each family member knows their role in the complex choreography of survival. Your mornings might involve rushed showers, grabbed coffee, honked horns in traffic. Theirs involve careful attention to the 100 small tasks that maintain life without any infrastructure beyond what their own hands create. Water must be fetched from the river. A quarter-mile journey that Ashka and Iska will make together, carrying leather water bags that hold a day's supply. The path is well worn, but requires vigilance. Bears fish the river in early morning. Wolves come to drink. Even the river itself poses dangers. Slippery rocks, sudden deep spots, the constant risk of contamination that could bring illness to the entire family. They'll gather more than water. The river journey provides opportunities to check fish traps, gather freshwater mussels if any have appeared overnight, collect specific plants that grow only in the riparian zone. Every journey serves multiple purposes in a world where energy expenditure must always balance against potential returns. Drac and Tam will check the trap lines, a series of ingenious devices that catch small game without constant human attention. These aren't simple snares, but sophisticated mechanisms that use bent saplings, carefully balanced triggers, and precise knotwork to capture rabbits, birds, and other small prey. The traps must be checked daily. Left too long, captured animals become bait for larger predators or simply rot, wasting precious protein. But checking too frequently disturbs the area, making animals wary. Like everything in their lives, trap checking requires finding the perfect balance point between competing needs. Meanwhile, Uma begins preparing the morning meal. Not the rushed grabbing of processed foods, but careful combination of available ingredients to create something both nutritious and satisfying. Last night's deer provides fresh liver, a delicacy rich in vitamins that will go to Ashka and the children, supporting the growing baby and the rapid development of young bodies. Groundnuts and seeds, gathered over previous weeks and processed into a coarse flour, will be mixed with water and herbs to create a filling porridge. Wild greens, gathered yesterday and kept fresh in damp leather wrappings, provide essential minerals. Dried berries add sweetness and concentrated energy. But perhaps most important is the tea Uma prepares. Not a simple beverage, but targeted medicine. For Ashka, raspberry leaf to strengthen the womb for the coming birth. For Iska, mild willow bark to ease the growing pains that have been troubling her sleep. For herself, the joint-easing combination of meadowsweet and birch that keeps her mobile despite arthritis that would cripple someone without herbal support. The preparation of these medicines requires encyclopedic knowledge. Each plant must be gathered at the right time, some before dawn when essential oils are most concentrated, others at midday when the sun has activated certain compounds. Processing varies by plant and purpose. Some dried quickly to preserve volatile components, others fermented to develop their full potency. You trust labels on bottles, dosing instructions written by strangers. Uma trusts only what she has seen work, what her teachers verified through generations of careful observation. A mistake in dosage or identification doesn't mean an uncomfortable day or a trip to the emergency room. It could mean death with no second chances. As the family gathers for the morning meal, they create a scene both utterly foreign and completely familiar to modern eyes. The food is different, the setting primitive by your standards, but the essential human dynamics remain unchanged. Parents ensuring children eat properly, elders sharing wisdom through stories, partners coordinating the day's activities. The same family dramas that play out over your breakfast table, just with different props and higher stakes. The morning meal serves purposes beyond nutrition. Plans for the day are discussed and refined. Weather signs are evaluated. Information about animal movements, plant conditions, and potential dangers is shared. In your world, this might happen through text messages and phone calls throughout the day. In theirs, this morning gathering provides the only opportunity for full family communication until evening brings them together again. Children learn by listening to adult conversations, absorbing not just information, but the way information should be evaluated and shared. They learn that grandfather's weather predictions carry more weight than their own guesses. They understand that certain tones of voice mean danger, others opportunity. They begin to grasp the complex social calculations that determine who speaks when and how seriously different speakers are taken. But the meal can't last long. Daylight is precious as autumn advances toward winter, and every hour must be used effectively. Your ancestors didn't have the luxury of procrastination or the safety net of stored wealth. Each day required active engagement with survival, and success meant the difference between thriving and dying. Ashka and Iska depart first, water containers slung over shoulders, gathering baskets at their hips. They follow the well-worn path toward the river, but their eyes constantly scan for opportunities. A previously unnoticed nut tree, signs of tuber plants beneath the surface, the particular shimmer of leaves that indicates medicinal properties. Your children might walk to school thinking about video games or social dramas. Iska walks thinking about plant identification, seasonal changes, the complex knowledge base she must master, to become a fully competent adult. Every step is a lesson, every observation a test of her growing understanding. Drac and Tam take a different path toward the trap lines. The father moves with the steady, ground-covering pace of an experienced hunter. The son struggles to keep up, his shorter legs working harder, but he won't complain. This is his initiation into the masculine world of providing, and showing weakness would delay his acceptance as a developing hunter. They move in silence mostly, but Drac occasionally points out important signs. A fresh deer track, the claw marks where a bear climbed for nuts, the particular way branches break when large animals pass through. Tam absorbs these lessons through his entire body, not just his mind. His feet learn to find the same quiet places his father's step. His eyes begin to see the patterns that mean information, rather than random forest details. The first trap lies a quarter-mile from camp, set along a game trail that rabbits use to move between feeding areas. Drac approaches carefully, not from fear of his own trap, but to avoid leaving human scent that might warn away future prey. The trap is empty, but this doesn't discourage him. Trapping is a numbers game, success measured in weeks rather than days. "See here," Drac whispers, crouching beside the mechanism. "The trigger was touched but not sprung." "What does that tell you?" Tam examines the subtle signs. A few grey hairs caught on the bent sapling, tiny scratches in the dirt. Something small, mouse, or young rabbit, still learning. Good that it escaped. Let it grow fat for winter. Drac adjusts the trigger sensitivity with practice movements. Remember, we're not trying to catch everything. A mouse feeds no one, and catching young means fewer animals next season. This is resource management that your modern world has largely forgotten. You might worry about sustainable fishing in abstract terms, perhaps choosing certain products at the grocery store. For Drac, sustainability isn't a concept, but a daily practice. Take too much this year, starve next year. The equation is simple and unforgiving. The second trap has been destroyed, not triggered, but torn apart with considerable force. Drac reads the story in the scattered components. Bear, curious about the human scent, investigating with destructive thoroughness. The carefully bent sapling is snapped, the cordage scattered, the trigger mechanism crushed. "Are we in danger?" Tam asks, trying to keep fear from his voice. Drac considers the sign carefully. No. See how the bear continued along the trail after? Not hunting, just passing through. But we'll need new materials for this trap. They gather what can be salvaged. Good cordage is too valuable to waste. Made from plant fibers twisted with infinite patience, each foot represents hours of work. You buy rope without thinking. They create it fiber by fiber, understanding its value in terms of human effort rather than monetary cost. The third trap brings success. A fat grouse hangs suspended, caught cleanly by the neck. Death came quickly, the bird struggles minimal. Drac shows Tam how to remove it without damaging the trap, how to reset the mechanism for another catch. Thank the bird spirit, Drac instructs, and Tam repeats the simple words of gratitude. You might see this as primitive superstition. For them, it's practical psychology, maintaining respect for the animals they depend on, avoiding the casual cruelty that can creep into necessary killing. As they work their way through the trap line, Drac shares knowledge that no modern parent would think to pass on. How to read the health of the forest by the behavior of squirrels, why certain plants grow together, and what that means for finding food, the way morning frost patterns predict afternoon weather. Your grandfather could smell snow 3 days away, Drac tells his son. I can manage 2 days sometimes. You'll need to do better. The winters grow harder. This isn't just nostalgia for elders, but recognition of a troubling pattern. The climate is changing, growing colder, forcing adaptations that previous generations didn't need. Your era worries about warming. Theirs face the advancing ice with tools of stone and bone. Meanwhile, down by the river, Ashka and Iska navigate the morning ritual of water gathering with practiced care. The path they follow has been worn smooth by thousands of journeys, yet each trip requires fresh vigilance. Ashka pauses at a bend in the trail, her hand gently restraining Iska. Fresh tracks in the mud. A bear passed this way during the night, heading downstream. The tracks are hours old, the edges already beginning to dry. But caution is survival. They wait, listening to the forest morning chorus. Birds sing normally, insects buzz without alarm. The bear has moved on. Consider your own morning water ritual. A simple turn of a tap, perhaps while checking messages on your phone. Hot or cold at your preference, clean and endless, requiring no thought beyond avoiding spillage. For Ashka and Iska, water means a careful journey, constant awareness, physical labor, and the ever-present knowledge that contaminated water could kill the entire family within days. They reach the river's edge, where a natural pool forms behind fallen logs. This is their preferred gathering spot. The still water allows sediment to settle. The logs provide a barrier against strong currents, and the overhanging willows offer concealment from both predators and enemies. Iska watches her mother test the water first, not with modern instruments, but with senses honed by generations of wisdom. The clarity, checked by filling a small wooden cup. The smell, evaluated with careful sniffs. The temperature, felt with sensitive fingertips. Even the taste, a tiny sip held in the mouth to detect any off flavors that might signal contamination upstream. Remember, Ashka instructs, her voice soft but serious. Water that looks clean can still carry sickness. Always check for dead animals upstream. Never gather from still pools with no outlet. The sickness grows there. And if the water tastes of metal or has rainbow colors on top, find another source. Your children learn about germs in school, understanding contamination through microscopes and science classes. Iska learns through stories of families who sickened, of children who died from bad water, of the careful rules that keep death at bay. The knowledge is no less accurate for being encoded in narrative rather than textbooks. They fill the water bag slowly, careful not to stir up sediment. These bags, made from deer bladders lined with pitch, represent hours of careful crafting. Each one holds a day's water for 2 people, enough to sustain life, but not so much that carrying becomes impossible. Iska has her own small bag now, a sign of her growing responsibility. But water gathering involves more than just water. While Iska fills the bags, Ashka scans the riverbank for opportunities. There, fresh watercress growing in the shallows, its peppery leaves rich with vitamins that will counter the heavy meat diet of recent days. She gathers quickly, but selectively, taking only the youngest leaves, leaving enough for regrowth. A flash of silver catches her eye. The fish traps Drac set 3 days ago have captured 2 fat trout. Not a major catch, but protein is protein. She dispatches them quickly with a sharp blow from a river stone, guts them efficiently at the water's edge. The entrails will feed the river's scavengers. Nothing wasted in nature's economy. Look here, she calls softly to Iska. Her daughter joins her at a muddy section of bank where various tracks overlap. This is education as essential as any modern classroom. What do you see? Ashka studies the marks carefully. Deer came to drink this morning. The edges are still sharp. And raccoon. No, the toes are wrong. Otter. Good eye. See how the webbing shows between the toes. And here, what's this? Ashka points to a different set of marks. Wolf. Ashka breathes, unconsciously moving closer to her mother. But old. From last night. 2 nights ago. See how the rain has softened the edges but not washed them away. If these were fresh, we would not be standing here talking. The lesson is clear. Reading sign correctly can mean the difference between life and death. Back at the shelter, Uma remains in the shelter, but her work is no less vital. She tends the fire, maintaining the precise heat needed for various projects. She processes plants gathered yesterday, separating seeds from chaff, grinding roots into powder, bundling herbs for drying. Her hands work automatically, while her mind ranges across the vast storehouse of knowledge she carries. She thinks about the coming winter and what preparations remain incomplete. She mentally inventories their food stores, calculating whether they have enough variety to prevent the nutritional deficiencies that can weaken a family by spring. She considers which medicines are running low and where the late gathering opportunities might be found. But mostly she thinks about teaching. At her age, with joints that protest and energy that fades, her most valuable contribution is the knowledge she can pass on. Every skill she fails to transfer, every piece of wisdom she doesn't share, dies with her. In a world without writing, human memory is the only library, and she is a volume that won't be printed again. Her current project demands precision, creating a new batch of the wound-healing salve that has saved more lives than she can count. The recipe exists nowhere but in her memory, passed from her grandmother's grandmother in an unbroken chain of healers. First, the bear fat must be rendered to perfect clarity. Too hot and it burns, losing its healing properties. Too cool and impurities remain. She tends the small fire beneath the stone bowl with infinite patience, skimming foam from the surface with a carved wooden spoon worn smooth by generations of use. While the fat renders, she prepares the herbs. Pine resin for its antiseptic properties, gathered from specific trees at specific times. Plantain leaves, dried and powdered, nature's antibiotic. Comfrey root for speed healing, though too much can seal a wound before infection clears. The proportions matter as much as the ingredients. A pinch too much comfrey, a gram too little resin, and healing becomes harm. You trust pharmaceuticals made by strangers in distant factories, their ingredients listed in chemical names you can't pronounce. Uma trusts only what she has made herself, from materials she gathered and processed, using knowledge verified through generations of careful observation. Her fingers move with practiced precision despite the arthritis that makes mornings difficult. She thinks of her own grandmother, who continued making medicines until 3 days before her death at the remarkable age of 52 winters. Uma has survived 47 winters herself, ancient by the standards of her time, a living repository of irreplaceable knowledge. As she works, she notices movement in the forest beyond the shelter, not the random rustling of small animals, but the purposeful progress of something larger. Her hand moves to the warning stone, ready to strike the alarm that would bring Drac running. But then she recognizes the gate, Nyack from the family upstream, his left leg dragging slightly from an old injury. Nyack appears at the shelter's edge, maintaining polite distance until acknowledged. This is social protocol as rigid as any modern etiquette. To approach another family's hearth, uninvited risks being mistaken for a raider, potentially fatal misunderstanding. "I see you, Nyack," Uma calls, using the formal greeting. The fire welcomes warmth seekers. Only now does he approach, limping heavily. The old wound, a cave bear's parting gift, troubles him more each winter. He brings news and a trade proposal. His family's best hunter fell from a cliff 3 days ago, breaking ribs. They need the rib-binding medicine Uma makes better than anyone in the valley. The negotiation that follows would seem strange to modern minds, accustomed to fixed prices and monetary exchange. Nyack offers dried fish, valuable but common. Uma counters that rib-binding medicine requires rare ingredients, particularly the inner bark of a specific willow that grows only in dangerous territory. "Your grandson is quick-footed," Nyack observes. "Mine has keen eyes, but damaged lungs from the wet cough last spring. Perhaps they could gather together. Safety in numbers, skills in combination." This is more than trade. It's alliance building, genetic diversity planning, survival strategy wrapped in casual conversation. Uma agrees, knowing that connections between families strengthen everyone's chances. Your children make friends at school. Theirs forge relationships that might mean the difference between lineages surviving or vanishing. As Nyack departs with a small portion of medicine, enough to ease suffering until the boys can gather more ingredients, Uma reflects on the complex web of obligations that bind the valley's families. Who owes whom? Who can be trusted? Who might raid if desperate? Which alliances might become marriages? Social complexity that matches any modern community, just without lawyers and contracts to formalize it. The sun climbs toward its zenith as the morning foragers return. Ashka and Iska arrive first, water bags full and supplemented by their river gathering. The trout will make a welcome addition to the midday meal, the watercress providing freshness to balance preserved foods. Drac and Tam return shortly after, the grouse dangling from Drac's belt, representing success enough to lighten their steps. Tam chatters excitedly about the morning's lessons, the tracks they saw, the trap that nearly caught a fox, the place where deer have been scraping velvet from their antlers. And father says I can help make new cordage this afternoon. The boy's excitement over what you might consider tedious work reflects different values. For him, cordage making represents growing skill, increasing usefulness, steps toward full adult status. Your children might brag about video game achievements. Tam boasts about mastering survival skills. The midday meal becomes a time for information exchange. Each pair shares their morning's observations, building a comprehensive picture of the valley's current state. This isn't casual conversation, but vital intelligence gathering. The bear tracks Ashka noted, combined with the destroyed trap Drac found, suggest a specific animal moving through specific territory. The family adjusts their mental maps accordingly. The bitterroot plants are seeding early, Iska reports proudly. Mother says that means hard frost within 2 hands of days. Everyone takes this seriously. Bitterroot has proven reliable as a weather predictor, and early frost means urgent preparation. Plants must be gathered before they die back. Meat must be smoked before preservation becomes difficult. Firewood must be stockpiled before snow makes gathering dangerous. Your weather forecasts come from satellites and computer models, available with a few taps on a screen. Theirs come from intimate observation of natural patterns, knowledge accumulated across centuries. Both can be wrong, but theirs engage them directly with the world they inhabit, rather than abstracting it into numbers and probabilities. The afternoon brings its own rhythms and requirements. While Ashka and Iska work on processing the morning's gatherings, Drak settles into tool maintenance, a task as critical as food gathering, but less obviously dramatic. He spreads his toolkit on a prepared hide, each item in its designated place. Your garage might hold hundreds of tools, each designed for specific purposes, most rarely used. His kit contains perhaps 20 implements, but each sees daily service and represents hundreds of hours of creation and maintenance. The prize is his primary spear point. That blade of volcanic glass traded from mountains 2 weeks' journey away. Obsidian, when properly worked, produces edges sharper than modern surgical steel, but is brittle, requiring constant attention to prevent catastrophic failure at the worst possible moment. Tam watches intently as his father examines the blade. See this? Drak indicates a tiny chip barely visible to untrained eyes. Strike a bone wrong, and this becomes a crack. Crack becomes break. Broken spear means hungry family, or dead hunter. The repair process would fascinate modern materials scientists. Using a piece of antler precisely shaped for the purpose, Drak applies controlled pressure to remove microscopic flakes from the damaged area. Each flake must be taken from exactly the right spot, at exactly the right angle. Too much pressure shatters the blade. Too little accomplishes nothing. You might watch craftsmen on video, learning techniques from edited tutorials. Tam learns by breathing in rhythm with his father, by feeling the subtle vibrations through the ground as the antler tool works the stone, by noting the minute changes in Drak's expression that signal satisfaction or concern. Your turn, Drak says eventually, handing Tam a practice piece. Inferior obsidian not worthy of tools, but perfect for learning. The boy's first attempts are clumsy, removing large chunks rather than delicate flakes. But Drak remains patient. In your world, failure in practice means little. Here, developing skill can mean the difference between eating and starving. Meanwhile, Ashka and Iska sort through the plants gathered over recent days, a task requiring encyclopedic knowledge and careful attention. Each plant has its optimal processing method, storage requirement, and use season. The bitterroot that predicts weather also provides crucial vitamins through winter, but only if properly prepared. Eaten fresh, it causes violent stomach cramping. Dried too quickly, it loses potency. The margin for error is narrow. Why do we keep the seed heads separate? Ashka quizzes her daughter. Iska thinks carefully. Because we plant them near the shelter. To make gathering easier? Good, but more than that. Watch Ashka selects the largest, healthiest seed heads, those from plants that show drought resistance or special vigor. We eat the weak plants, save seeds from the strong. Each year, the plants near our shelter grow better suited to our needs. This is artificial selection in action, the same process that would eventually create agriculture, though these people don't think in such terms. They simply know that careful seed saving leads to better gathering, that working with nature's patterns yields better results than fighting them. You buy vegetables bred over millennia to meet human preferences, never thinking about the process. Iska participates directly in that process, learning to shape the plant world to human needs, one careful choice at a time. Uma, energy flagging as afternoon wears on, calls Iska over for a different kind of lesson. My eyes grow dim, the old woman admits, but you must learn the healing marks. Bring the medicine containers. What follows would be recognized by modern educators as multi-sensory learning, though Uma would simply call it the way things are taught. Each container bears symbols that serve as memory aids. The spiral for moon plants, the radiating lines for sun plants. But Uma adds layers of meaning through story and association. This mark, she indicates a wavy line, is the river plant sign. But see how it also looks like the movement in your belly when you eat something bad. River plants cure belly sickness. The mark teaches the cure. Iska's fingers trace the symbols, while Uma tells the associated stories. How her great-grandmother discovered that river mint eases birthing pains. Why moon-gathered plants must be stored separately from sun-gathered ones. Which combinations strengthen each other and which cancel out. Modern medicine separates active ingredients, standardizes doses, eliminates variables. Traditional medicine embraces complexity, understanding that healing involves more than chemical reactions. The ritual of preparation, the stories that encode proper use, the social context of healing, all contribute to effectiveness in ways your science is only beginning to acknowledge. As afternoon shadows lengthen, one more critical task remains: firewood gathering. Your ancestors understood what modern camping enthusiasts often learn painfully. Gathering adequate firewood in daylight is far easier than scrambling for fuel in darkness. The whole family except Uma participates, each member targeting different resources. Drax seeks standing dead wood, trees killed by lightning or disease but still vertical, their wood dry and ready to burn. Ashka gathers smaller branches and the particularly resinous pine knots that will restart a dying fire in the night's coldest hours. Even young Tam contributes, collecting bundles of dry grass and small twigs for kindling. Every piece matters. Run out of small material and restarting the fire becomes nearly impossible. Run out of large logs and the family faces a cold night that could kill the elderly or infant. Iska makes a special discovery: a hollow tree containing abandoned honeycomb. The bees departed weeks ago, but crystallized honey remains. She calls excitedly to her mother, who approaches with proper caution. Even abandoned hives can harbor dangers. Bears investigating the same resource, or worse, the chance that the bees merely relocated elsewhere in the tree. But the find proves safe and valuable. Honey provides concentrated calories and natural antibiotics. Mixed with certain herbs, it creates cough medicine. Fermented carefully, it becomes a ceremonial drink for special occasions. The wax proves equally valuable. Waterproofing for containers, healing for cracked skin, fuel for the small lamps that provide light for detailed work. Your sugar comes refined and packaged, its origins invisible. Their sweetness comes with stings risked and trees climbed, making each taste precious beyond mere flavor. As the sun drops toward the valley's western rim, painting clouds in shades of amber and rose, the family makes final preparations for night. Firewood gets stacked within easy reach, but far enough from the fire to avoid accidental ignition. Water vessels are topped off. Nobody wants to navigate to the river in darkness. Tools return to their designated places, ready for emergency use. The evening meal preparations begin, simpler than the morning's feast, but no less important. Nutrition must be maintained. Calories consumed to fuel bodies that work constantly against cold and entropy. The grouse from morning joins roots roasted in coals, seasoned with wild herbs that provide both flavor and medicine. As darkness approaches, the family gathers around the fire for the day's final ritual. Storytelling. You might consider this entertainment, the prehistoric equivalent of television. But for them, stories serve purposes far beyond amusement. They encode survival information, preserve historical memory, maintain social bonds, and prepare young minds for sleep. Tonight, Uma takes the speaking role, her voice still strong despite her body's frailty. She tells of the long winter, 3 generations past, when snow fell for moons without stopping, and half the valley's families vanished. Not a tale to frighten, but to teach how the survivors rationed food, which plants still grew beneath the snow, how they kept fires burning when wood ran low. My grandmother's mother lived through that winter, Uma says, her eyes reflecting firelight. She was younger than you, Iska, when it began. By spring, she had learned to find mouse caches under the snow, to know which bark could be eaten when ground fine, to keep the fire alive with dry dung when wood was gone. Your children learn history from books written by strangers about people they'll never meet. These children learn from elders who learned from elders in an unbroken chain. The stories live because the listeners survived. Each tale carries the weight of successful strategies, proven techniques, wisdom bought with suffering. Tam fights sleep, not wanting to miss anything, but his eyes grow heavy. At 6 winters, he's heard these stories before, but understands them differently each time. Last year, the long winter tale was adventure. This year, beginning to grasp mortality, it carries different meaning. Next year, when his responsibilities increase, it will teach new lessons from the same words. And that, Uma concludes, is why we never let pride prevent trading. Never let anger break alliances. Never let today's plenty make us forget tomorrow's possible hunger. The families who survived the long winter were not the strongest or the smartest, but those who remembered they were part of something larger. Modern individualism would puzzle these people. You celebrate independence, self-reliance, personal achievement. They understand survival as fundamentally communal. The lone wolf dies, the pack endures. Not philosophy, but practical reality proven across generations. As the family prepares for sleep, each member performs their evening tasks. Drac banks the fire carefully. Too much fuel wastes resources and risks dangerous flare-ups. Too little risks the flame dying in the night. He selects specific woods for their overnight burning characteristics, arranging them to maintain steady heat with minimal attention. Ashka checks on the baby growing within her, hand on her swelling belly, feeling for the movements that signal health. 2 more moons, perhaps 3, before this child joins their world. She drinks the evening tea Uma prepared. Raspberry leaf again, building strength for birth, along with herbs to ease the back pain that comes with carrying new life. Your pregnancies are monitored by machines, measured in weeks, supported by modern medicine. Hers proceeds by ancient rhythms, tracked by moon phases, supported by plant wisdom and experienced women. Both paths can lead to healthy babies or tragedy. The tools differ. The hopes and fears remain unchanged. Iska helps Uma settle for the night, supporting the old woman's painful journey from sitting to lying. This too is education, learning to tend the elderly with dignity, understanding that knowledge and wisdom are worth preserving even when bodies fail. Your culture often segregates the old in special facilities. Theirs keeps them central until the end. Their weakness a reminder of life's arc. Their knowledge accessible until final breath. Tam already sleeps, curled like a small animal in his furs. His day's exhaustion ensures deep rest, but Ashka still checks his position, adjusts his covering, performs the eternal parental monitoring that transcends all eras. You might use baby monitors and video cameras. She uses eyes and ears, and the intuition that comes from constant proximity. One by one, the family settles into sleep positions refined by generations of practice. not random sprawling, but careful arrangement, close enough for shared warmth, positioned to respond quickly to threats, the strongest members bracketing the vulnerable. Even in sleep, they remain a functional unit, ready to transform from rest to action if danger appears. But tonight holds no emergencies. The fire crackles softly, its smoke drawing cleanly through the natural chimney. Somewhere in the forest, an owl calls, answered by another across the valley. The river maintains its eternal conversation with the stones. The stars, those same stars you see but cannot see, wheel overhead in their ancient patterns. Drac remains awake longest, as leaders do in all times and places. His mind reviews the day, adequate food gathered, successful hunting, tools maintained, knowledge transferred, family safe. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but today's have been met. In your world, success might mean promotions earned or investments grown. In his, it means another day survived with dignity, another link forged in the chain leading to the future. As I prepare to leave this morning's scene, I'm struck by both the vast gulf and the intimate connection between this ancient dawn and your modern morning. They wake to bird songs. You wake to electronic beeps. They read weather in cloud patterns. You check apps on glowing screens. They gather food with their own hands. You gather it from shelves stocked by strangers. Yet the essential experiences remain unchanged. The struggle to leave warm beds on cold mornings. The careful tending of what keeps us alive, whether hearth fire or monthly payments. The weight of responsibility for those we love. The daily negotiation between individual desires and family needs. The constant dance of survival, just with different music playing. These ancestors of yours faced each day with tools you would consider primitive, but with knowledge and skills you might find impossible to master. They lived lives of immediate consequence, where every action mattered and every decision carried weight. They built the foundation upon which all human achievement rests, one careful morning at a time. As the morning sun climbs higher and their day's work begins in earnest, remember that you carry their legacy in every cell of your body. The hands that tend your coffee maker descended from hands that tended eternal flames. The eyes that scan your phone screen evolved to read the subtle signs of danger and opportunity in wild places. The mind that worries about modern abstractions developed its power through the concrete challenges of survival. You are the inheritor of 45,000 years of successful mornings, of ancestors who woke, worked, and persevered through conditions that would challenge the hardiest modern humans. They didn't just survive. They thrived. They created. They built the behaviors and wisdom that made civilization possible. So as you face your own morning challenges, the commute, the workplace, the thousand small negotiations of modern life, remember Ashka tending her fire in the pre-dawn darkness. Remember Tam following his father to the trap lines. Remember Uma grinding medicines that hold healing in their essence. Remember that you come from people who faced each dawn with courage and capability, who built tomorrow one today at a time. Until we meet again in the deep rivers of time, this is the Chrononaut, reminding you that every morning connects you to an unbroken chain of human awakening, stretching back to the first dawn that human eyes open to greet with conscious purpose.